The night was silent, the kind of silence that wraps around a home like a blanket, but inside one mansion on the edge of the city, there was a sound that broke it, the faint, trembling voice of a little girl. A father who had built his empire with sleepless nights and endless boardroom battles had come home earlier than usual, hoping to surprise his family with his presence. But as he walked through the grand hallway, polished floors gleaming beneath his shoes, he froze. What he saw through the half-open door of his daughter's room made his chest tighten and his eyes sting. His little girl, just 8 years old, was on her knees beside her bed, her tiny hands clasped together, whispering a prayer through tears. And the words she spoke shattered him. "God, please don't let Daddy forget me. Please make him love me again." Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of family, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Together, we can spread stories that touch hearts and change lives. The father, Daniel, was a man the world admired and envied. At just 45, he had climbed from nothing to everything, CEO of a global company, owner of luxury cars, private jets, and estates scattered across the world. He was the kind of man who could command respect with just a glance, whose presence filled boardrooms with energy. But in all the places he was conquering the world, there was one place he was losing it all, at home. His wife, Emily, had tried countless times to remind him of dinners missed, birthdays forgotten, bedtimes skipped. His daughter, Lily, had tried to draw him pictures, write him little notes, leave toys on his desk, all in the hope he might notice her. But Daniel's world was one of deadlines and deals, where emotions were seen as weaknesses, and family was something he believed he could always make time for later. That night, however, destiny had brought him home earlier than usual. His flight from New York had been cancelled due to bad weather, and for the first time in months, he walked into his home at an hour when his family was still awake. He expected maybe to find his daughter playing with her toys, or his wife reading on the couch. But instead, he saw his daughter, kneeling on the carpet, eyes shut tightly, cheeks glistening with tears, whispering to God like she was holding on to her last hope. The words cut him like a knife. "Don't let Daddy forget me. Make him love me again." He hadn't realized how deeply his absence had scarred her. To him, she was always still young and would understand someday. But to her, every missed bedtime, every unanswered question, every broken promise had been an invisible wound. And here she was, too small to even hold the weight of such heartbreak, asking God to give her back the father she missed. Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, his heart pounding. Memories rushed through his mind, the first time he held Lily in his arms, the way she once called him her hero, how she used to wait by the window for him when she was little, squealing with joy at the sound of his car. When had all that joy faded? When had he become a stranger in his own home? Slowly, he stepped inside her room. The soft creak of the floorboard made Lily turn her head, and for a moment, her eyes widened in surprise. She quickly wiped her tears, embarrassed to be caught crying. She whispered, "Daddy? You're home," as though she couldn't believe it. Daniel knelt down beside her, his arms wrapping around her small body, and for the first time in years, he wept openly. He whispered apologies she was too young to fully understand, but she clung to him as though she had been waiting her whole life for this one embrace. The days that followed were not easy. A man who had given all of himself to business now had to learn how to give himself to love. He cancelled meetings, rescheduled flights, and began coming home early, not because he was forced to, but because he wanted to. He started joining Lily for bedtime stories, fumbling through fairy tales with voices that made her giggle. He walked her to school when he could, holding her hand, feeling both proud and ashamed that something so simple had felt like an achievement. But perhaps the most difficult change was in himself. He had to unlearn the idea that money and gifts could substitute for presents. In the past, whenever guilt ate at him, he would buy Lily the newest toy or send Emily flowers. But now, he realized that his daughter never wanted toys, she just wanted him. She wanted her father to be her friend, her protector, her safe place. One evening, a few weeks later, Daniel was helping Lily with her school project. They sat at the dining table, glitter and glue sticks scattered everywhere, laughter filling the air. At one point, Lily looked at him with a smile that could melt any heart and said, "Daddy, I don't have to pray for you anymore. God answered me." Those words undid him. He excused himself to the bathroom, where he splashed water on his face to hide the tears. For a man who had once stood unshaken before investors, competitors, and even crises, it was his daughter's simple faith that broke him down the most. The change in Daniel rippled through the family. Emily, who had almost given up hope, began to see her husband again, not the businessman, but the man she had fallen in love with. Dinner times became sacred. Family weekends turned into small adventures, picnics in the park, trips to the zoo, movie nights at home with popcorn fights and blankets piled high. Slowly, the mansion that had once felt empty and cold began to feel like a real home again. But the journey wasn't perfect. There were times Daniel felt the tug of his old life, urgent calls, late-night emails, offers too good to refuse. Yet each time, he would remember that night when he saw his daughter praying not for a toy, not for success, but simply for his love. And each time, he chose differently. Because he knew now that no fortune, no deal, no empire could ever be worth the cost of losing his family's trust. Years later, when Lily was graduating high school, Daniel sat in the front row, his eyes never leaving her as she stood tall, radiant, and confident. When she mentioned him in her speech, calling him, "the man who taught me that love is the greatest success of all," he broke down once again, realizing just how far they had come. Dear friends, if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Let's spread more stories that remind us of the power of love, second chances, and family. And before we end, I have a special request. Drop a comment below and tell us, what does family mean to you? Your words might inspire someone else today.